The stars above the Kareth corridor had never looked so beautiful, and they had never looked so dangerous. The ESV Unyielding Meridian drifted at half-thrust through the supply lane, her cargo bays loaded with medical equipment, colonist seed banks, and civilian relief packages bound for the outer settlements of Proxima Dawnhold. She was not a warship. She carried no weapons beyond point defense turrets rated for debris. Her hull bore the blue and white bands of the United Earth Humanitarian Fleet, markings recognized across 37 star systems as symbols of protected passage. The Vorkai Armada did not care. 17 vessels dropped from fold space without warning. Their hulls gleamed like oil in moonlight, angular, hungry shapes built for violence. The lead ship transmitted on all frequencies, a message in galactic standard that the Meridian's translator rendered in flat, mechanical tones. Convoy disabled. Cargo forfeit. Crew discretionary. Captain Lena Rowe had time to activate one emergency beacon before the first volley tore through her engine nacelles. Admiral Darian Voss was in the middle of a tactical review when the alert came through. He was a broad man, dark-skinned and silver-templed, with the kind of quiet that made junior officers nervous, not because he was unpredictable, but because he was always thinking 3 moves ahead and rarely shared the map. He sat at the head of the strategy table aboard ESV Cardinal Reach, Earth's mobile fleet command platform, and watched the holographic projection of the Kareth corridor blink from green to red. He read the distress report twice. He did not swear. He did not pace. He pressed 2 fingers to his earpiece and said, simply, "Get me a channel to Fleet Command." And someone waked the Secretary General. The officer at the comm station looked up. "Sir, the Meridian is still broadcasting. Faint. Partial. There are survivors." Voss stood. "Then we're not having a strategy review anymore." He buttoned his jacket with the unhurried precision of a man who had already decided exactly what was going to happen. "We're going to war." The Vorkai Dominion had been expanding for 60 years by the time they first encountered humanity. They had absorbed 14 species, some diplomatically, most through controlled demolition of resistance, and had developed a refined institutional arrogance about the process. Humanity was catalogued as a Class 4 emergent civilization, space-capable, resource-rich, emotionally volatile, and tactically unsophisticated. General Kael Veyron had read the assessment himself. He had written parts of it. He was the Dominion's preeminent war commander, tall by Vorkai standards, his exoskeletal plating a deep indigo, his 4 eyes calibrated to track 17 simultaneous tactical feeds. He had never lost a campaign. He had never needed to reconsider a strategy once deployed. When his subordinates had proposed targeting human supply convoys to create economic pressure ahead of formal annexation negotiations, Veyron had approved it with the same disinterest he might give to approving a resupply requisition. Humans would protest. They would file grievances with the Galactic Concord. They would demand apologies, reparations, seat adjustments at the negotiating table. That was what species like this did. He was aboard his command vessel Dominion's Patience when his communications officer brought him the Earth transmission. Not a protest. Not a diplomatic communique. Not a request for emergency arbitration. A declaration. Veyron read it 3 times. Then he read it again. To the Vorkai Dominion, its governing council, and all forces operating under its authority. At 0347 Universal Standard Time, forces bearing Vorkai military designation attacked the unarmed humanitarian vessel ESV Unyielding Meridian in the Kareth corridor. 23 crew members were killed. 41 were taken captive. The vessel was destroyed. This was not a provocation. This was not a negotiating position. This was not an opening move in a political sequence. This was a mistake. Effective immediately, the United Earth Authority has declared a state of active war against the Vorkai Dominion. All diplomatic channels are suspended. All negotiation frameworks are void. All Vorkai assets within Earth-recognized space are subject to immediate seizure. You attacked civilians wearing the symbol of humanitarian protection. You killed medical personnel. You took hostages. We are not filing a complaint. We are not requesting arbitration. We are coming. Admiral Darian Voss, Commander, United Earth Fleet. Veyron set the document down on the surface of his command table and looked at it for a long moment. "Sir," said his tactical officer, "should we prepare a response?" Veyron looked up. What response would that be? A diplomatic channel, perhaps. An offer to return the hostages. Frame it as a misunderstanding? Yes, sir. Veyron was quiet. He pulled up Earth's military registry on his tactical display. He had looked at it before, in the context of the Class 4 assessment. He looked at it again now, with different eyes. Earth had been quietly building for a long time. Not quietly enough. How many vessels? He asked his intelligence liaison. Current confirmed count, 417 warships. But sir, there are anomalies in the fold space readings across the corridor. Signatures we haven't catalogued. The patterns suggest. How many? Veyron said, total? A pause. We don't know. For the first time in a very long career, General Kale Veyron felt something unfamiliar move through his chest cavity. It took him a moment to name it. Uncertainty. The first wave hit the Vorkai staging ground at Harith Station 11 hours after the declaration was transmitted. Not a skirmish. Not a warning shot. Not a demonstration of capability meant to open talks. Admiral Voss had studied every war humanity had ever fought, and humanity had fought many. He had read about the ones where nations telegraphed their strategies, pulled punches to preserve leverage, gave opponents room to regroup. He had also read about the ones where they didn't. He chose the second tradition. 47 Earth warships dropped from fold space in a precise envelope around Harith Station and opened fire within 4 seconds of materialization. They hit power relays, weapons platforms, and communications arrays in a coordinated sequence that had been calculated to the millisecond. The station's shields, rated for standard galactic Concord threat assessment, lasted 11 seconds before the second salvo penetrated them. The Vorkai defenders had never seen targeting this precise. They had never encountered fire discipline this consistent. The human vessels moved in formations that their tactical computers couldn't predict, not because they were random, but because the patterns were built on strategic logic the Vorkai hadn't seen before, emergent from 1,000 years of warfare compressed into doctrine that no algorithm had yet been written to anticipate. Harith Station fell in 40 minutes. When Veyron received the report, he was already moving to his tactical center. He pulled every piece of intelligence he had on human military doctrine and started reading it as if for the first time, because in every meaningful sense, he was. The Class 4 assessment had noted that humans were emotionally volatile. Veyron now understood that this had been misread. Humans were not volatile. Volatility implied randomness. What humans were was something else entirely, something that none of the 14 species the Dominion had absorbed had ever been. Patient. They had been patient for a very long time, building fleets, training crews, developing doctrine, preparing, not because they expected to go to war, but because they were the kind of species that prepared anyway. Just in case. Just because someone might, someday, make a mistake. And then someone had attacked a hospital ship. The hostages from the Meridian were recovered on the 9th day of the war, extracted from a Vorkai holding facility by a special operations team that left the facility structurally intact and its garrison unharmed, precision that was, in its own way, more frightening than destruction would have been. A message without words, we could have done worse. We chose not to. This time. Admiral Voss stood on the docking bay of Cardinal Reach when the transport carrying the survivors arrived. He greeted each of them personally. He learned their names before they disembarked. He remembered everyone. When the last survivor, a young medic named Sarah, 19 years old, a burn across her left arm still wrapped in Vorkai medical gauze, stepped off the ramp and saw him standing there, she stopped. "Is it true?" she asked. "Did we?" "Yes," Voss said simply. She looked at him for a long moment. "Because of us?" "Because of what was done to you," he said. "There's a difference." She didn't say anything else. Neither did he. There was nothing else needed. 41 people had been taken. 41 people came home. General Kale Veyron, in his command center 11 light-years away, was already composing the first diplomatic communication the Vorkai Dominion had sent to Earth in 11 days. Not a threat. Not a counterdeclaration. A question. "What are your terms?" He already suspected the answer would not be comfortable. But he had learned, in 9 days, that humans were not unreasonable, only uncompromising, which was an entirely different thing. The stars above the Kareth corridor looked exactly as they always had. But everything beneath them had changed.